when we say charge on, we commit to do extraordinary things. It's a catalyst for action. To put in the work. To keep trying. It's a challenge. To be smarter and stronger. Charge on. It drives us to be more. To get after it every day. It's time to rise above. To let them know we're coming. Charge on. Charge on.
Susan, sorry, please unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Research Recovery and Reskill webinar. This is our third webinar of the fall series. Thank you for making time in your schedules to join us. I'm Susan Vernon Devlin, Manager of Communications and Marketing here at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. Today is part 2 of 4 in a mini workshop series called People Working or Not Working in Isolation, Coping Tools for the Hospitality Industry. These 4 workshops are in collaboration with the UCF Department of Psychology and will be presented by world-class researchers outside of the hospitality industry. Before we get started, first a bit of housekeeping. Attendees, we will use the question and answer feature during this webinar. Comments and questions can be placed there. We will respond to your questions as time permits during the presentation and definitely at the end of the presentation. If your question is the same or similar to a question that has already been asked, we will only respond once. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, rest assured we will try and contact you afterwards to get to your question. And now I would like to introduce to you Dr. Kristen Horan as an assistant professor in the Industrial Organizational Psychology program at the University of Central Florida. Dr. Horan is the Deputy Director of Program Administration for the Targeted Research Training Program. In this role, she organizes and evaluates each semestered Targeted Research Training Program workshop. Dr. Horan will provide a brief overview of the Targeted Research Training Program and introduce today's speaker. Dr. Horan.
Thank you so much, Susan. I wanted to extend a warm welcome to everyone viewing this webinar. Whether you joined us for last week's session or this is your first time logging on to this series, we're so happy that you're here today. Today's webinar is the second in a series addressing an issue of great importance to the hospitality industry in a COVID-19 context: isolation. Whether individuals are furloughed or adjusting to modified work procedures, an industry that is typically characterized by connections with people is suddenly feeling a little bit more lonely, and this has serious implications for employee health, safety, and well-being. Our expert speakers will provide tools to address this challenging time. This series is brought to you through a collaboration between Rosen College of Hospitality Management and the Targeted Research Training Program, or TRT for short. Last week, I introduced the mission and activities of the Targeted Research Training Program. Today, I'll provide a brief overview for new viewers. Targeted Research Training is a program housed within the University of Central Florida Psychology Department that performs cutting-edge research on methods to improve workplace health and safety. We also provide graduate training to help develop the next generation of occupational health and safety professionals and perform outreach services, such as this webinar series, for both academic and industry audiences. This program is part of a larger group called the Sunshine Education and Research Center, housed at the University of South Florida, which is funded by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. The research, training, and outreach activities of the Targeted Research Training Program are multifaceted, interdisciplinary, and collaborative. Our work would not be possible without the dedicated supervision of core faculty members in the University of Central Florida Industrial Organizational Psychology Program and the Rosen of Hospitality Management. The research of students and faculty in multiple health promoting disciplines at 4 universities across the Southeast, and the guidance of our advisory board partners. We look forward to continuing to serve the needs of the local hospitality industry to better understand and improve hospitality health and safety. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Alicia Grandey is a liberal arts professor of psychology at Penn State University. She received her doctorate in industrial organizational psychology at Colorado State University in 1999. Dr. Grandey's research focuses on emotional labor, or the managing of emotional expressions as a required part of the work role that has implications for performance and health. She also studies related topics to workplace stress and diversity, including work-family conflict and burnout, and the role of gender, racial, and national differences among employees. Dr. Grandey has published over 60 articles and co-edited the 2013 book, Emotional Labor in the 21st Century. Her work has received funding from the National Science Foundation, been cited over 18,000 times, and has been featured in popular press, including Harvard Business Review, The New Yorker, National Public Radio, and other sources. She can be found on Twitter at Alicia Grandey and on LinkedIn. It is my great pleasure to turn the webinar over to Dr. Grandey.
Thanks, Kristen, and to the UCF team. Can you all hear me okay? Am I coming through? All good? Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. It would be certainly fun to be in Florida at this time. What I'd like to do today with my cat, who's here also with me from my home office here in Pennsylvania, is talk to you a little bit about 3 main goals for today. What I'm going to be doing is trying to make sense of the emotional states that we're in due to this pandemic and other trickle-down factors, and explore how those are unique challenges for those of you in the hospitality industry, particularly around the topic that I have studied for the past 20 years, emotional labor. And then to identify ways, we'll conclude with some specific ways that target how to deal with these emotions and the stress that we're under. I understand last time you might have seen a talk on clinical psychologists talking about mental health. There will be some overlap, but I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm specifically about the workplace and occupational health. So hopefully you'll find it a distinct experience. I'll be laying out some popular media reports as well as some of my own scientific research that's currently ongoing as well. So let's get started. Before I can really dive into myself and my research and what I want to share, I want to learn a little bit about you. So we're going to attempt a poll here. Let's see if I can make that happen. So that you can tell me about your current work status. So I understand there might be a variety of people's experiences. So if you could just choose A, B, C, or D with the poll that's on your screen from wherever you are, and let me know which best describes your current situation. Are you mostly working at work? You're at work and you're interacting with people? Are you mostly working at home, maybe remotely via computer? Yes, there's a question. Is the poll not coming through? Sorry, I can't see the chat box, so if somebody could help me out, I'd be appreciative.
Dr. Grandey, I have not seen a poll pop up on my screen.
Huh. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate the raised hand. So are you working at home? Are you working at work? Are you not working? Maybe you're on furlough or on leave, or are you in between jobs right now? So just, I'll share the results in a minute. This will just give me a sense of what people's experiences are at this time. And by the way, I'm gonna just have a couple of these polls, but in these moments where we're waiting, take a deep breath. I find that we tend to be so stressed that we forget to breathe. And there's so much going on that a deep breath can feel very cleansing. So take a deep breath, and now here we go. We're gonna share this poll. So it looks like over half of you are working from home or working remotely, but a good proportion, about a third, are working at work. So you're interacting with, assumably with customers or coworkers, and fewer of you are currently not working at this time. So that's a bit about where you are. Now I want to know how you are. So what I'm interested in is in this past week, how often did you feel any of the following? So really like current states of where you're at. On the left, you see emotions that are around nervous, anxious, dread, kind of more the high anxiety ones. On the right, you see ones that are more exhausted and depleted. So here's the poll again. Again, this time A means you experience these almost every day, one of these emotions. B is maybe a couple days a week or several days a week, so the majority of days, but not all the time. C is just a couple days, and D would be, no, this doesn't describe how I'm feeling right now. Okay, so I'll end this poll and share these experiences. So as you can see, we have a variety of experiences, and that's part of the idea of emotional states, right? We don't all experience it the same way. Maybe this last week was okay, maybe this week is worse. But it looks like for the majority of people, those high anxiety, agitation experiences and exhaustion experiences are an almost everyday occurrence. Half or another third are saying several days a week, and then fewer people are saying, no, this isn't really describing me. So what I'm trying to get at here is understand where we're at, both physically in terms of our workspace as well as emotionally. And this is really important because it's important to think about, why do we feel the way we feel? Because these emotions are information. And obviously right now we're dealing with these emotional states because of this pandemic, but the pandemic has had trickle-down effects that contribute to these states. So we've had from that pandemic these national and state level changes. The lockdown clearly had extreme implications for those of us in face-to-face customer service and hospitality roles. No foot traffic, no business, no tips, layoffs and furloughs. If you're still working, as most of you are, you might have survivor guilt. And then of course, adjusting to masks. We've got the politics and the protests and everything going on also at our national level as well. And then there's a trickle down to local changes. So organizations and schools have had to adjust to these higher up events and changes. And all of this contributes to our own personal state of things feeling a little uncertain. And maybe these changes are something we have to adapt to. And that adaptation, the change, can feel threatening. And that's what produces the state of anxiety. This is not unique to you. There's been a number of studies showing that this is a common response right now to the pandemic. This was a survey I did for the frontline staff at Penn State University, and you can see the most commonly reported emotion was anxious and stressed, with tired and overwhelmed, those kind of more depleted states also being present, as you can see right here. One of the comments that was raised was, I feel like the four walls are closing in on me. Kind of reminds me of Star Wars and that scene in the trash compactor, right? So that feeling of stress can also feel like you just don't have what it takes. And then that state of exhaustion is also accompanying it. So why does this happen? So I like to think and describe emotions as information. They're not something to be good or bad or to get rid of or to hold on to. They're just information about our conditions and how we're responding to them. And so anxiety actually is telling us that something we value is threatened. It's either lost or it's threatened to be lost. And we process that and think, okay, is there something I can do? And the trick is that right now, it all feels so uncontrollable, unpredictable in terms of like what's going to happen next, how long is this going to last, everything's uncertain. And all of those appraisals, uncontrollable, unpredictable, and uncertain, make any event or change feel unmanageable, and therefore we feel threatened. When we feel threatened, we experience a bodily change, an arousal state, physiological arousal state. You may have heard of fight or flight. So it's mobilizing our resources to act, to adapt to the change. But again, if it feels like there's nothing we can do about it, we're just constantly in that high state of arousal. Now, there's lots of reasons that we feel threat, and specifically for hospitality workers, you can feel threatened. A variety of valued things are threatened right now. So if you're furloughed or laid off, you might have job or financial threat. Your job identity is threatened. Who am I if I'm not working right now? And if you're laid off, you don't have the income that you need. But if you're working, you have threat too, right? So if you're working at home, as many of you are, you have that work family threat. So any moment, my children might pop in to this call, and that's just part of life right now, but it also might impair my productivity and my sense of being a good employee. And then if you're working with people, as many of you are, you're experiencing health threat, right? You're exposed to the virus more, you're exposed to other people's emotions, and I'll talk more about that later. So I've done a little research with hospitality workers recently, and what we found was about half of the respondents in this study were not working compared to working, compared to in February. So we actually had a survey of people in February, then COVID happened. We surveyed them again and found about half were no longer working. So we were able then to compare their anxiety levels later in time. And we actually found that they were similar, so both groups, the working and the not working groups, had increased level of threat and anxiety and distress and irritability and all those negative emotions. And it didn't matter whether they were working or not working. So either groups, wherever you're at, there's a threat being experienced that we feel like we can't control or escape. And over time, it explains why we feel so tired. So those feelings of being overwhelmed and exhausted are because of that state of arousal over time. So this graphic is illustrating how at first a stressor or an event that's changing our situation can be adaptive, right? So initially we had an adaptive fear response to the pandemic. Oh no, we don't want to catch the virus. What can we do? Let's practice social distancing. I'll put on a mask. Let's hope this all goes away. Remember that when we were like, maybe this will all go away in a couple of weeks. So that alarm and fight or flight, physiological arousal motivates us to do things that are adaptive. But we are now in a state where we've been holding on to that vigilance and that fear and that arousal, and the threats just seem to keep coming, such that our body kind of gives out. It's not meant to stay in that high level of arousal for so long, for 6 months, over 6 months now. And that's where we're in this state of pandemic fatigue. This is when our body might actually start to shut down if we don't do something about it. Our bodies are not meant to hold on to it for that long. So you can actually see this playing out, on a daily level as it cycles through the stress. You might see your anxiety is contributing in this fight or flight. If you're not coping well, if you're coping in a maladaptive way, you're experiencing job burnout, where you're dreading going to work, you're exhausted, you feel like you're not effective at work. You maybe are having trouble sleeping. And all of these things contribute to feeling like I can't do my job, I'm not being a good parent, I'm not being a good partner. And then we feel more anxious about not performing well, and those fears about losing our jobs, and then it continues, and the spiral keeps going. Our bodies shut down eventually. Now, you might be sitting there going, Alicia, thanks a lot, I feel worse. Okay, so let's step back. One of the things that we know about what is maladaptive is not just the emotional state itself, although that's certainly the starting point. It's the suppression of that emotional state. It's the avoiding or hiding or numbing it. So don't just take my word for it. I mean, I obviously value emotions, I study them, but this is a study that was just recently done by a colleague of mine, John Trigakos up in Canada, who showed that after the initial anxiety state, those who felt more anxious had worse outcomes because they were suppressing it more. They were pushing it down. They were trying to not show it and act like they, business as usual. And that suppressing of our feelings denies our basic needs, right? Our needs for feeling autonomous or having choice, feeling like we're self-expressive and we're being our true selves. It impairs our competence because it's distracting us all the time. It's like, I got to push it all down and keep it deep down. And it's interfering with our connection with other people, right? Part of our isolation is we're not talking to each other about how we're really doing. We might be doing just the surface level, getting through the day. Yep. Okay, fine. And these impairments of these three states contribute to costs to all of our domains of life. And again, this was a study that just got published in one of our top journals in the field. So the summary of this first part is that I want you to think about anxiety, that anxiety state that many of you described feeling. It's a rational and adaptive response. It's not something bad in itself that needs to be pushed down and hidden or be ashamed of. It's a rational response to the events we're experiencing. The problem is when we keep pushing it down and hiding it or avoiding it, and we don't, we're trying to do things to numb it. Drinking is another example. Not talking about it is another example. All of those things actually make it worse and lead to exhaustion that has those other impairments. So at this point, let me pause and see what questions there might be before I moved into how it is specifically an issue for hospitality workers in the workplace.
Dr. Grandey, I don't see any questions right now. I think our participants are pondering what you have said. So I think unless there is a question, we can move on.
Okay, so let's get to how it's related to the workplace. So the second goal is thinking about how this creates a unique challenge. So if the majority of you are experiencing this anxiety state or this depleted, exhausted state, how does that affect your ability to go to work and perform well? So the topic that I've studied for the past 20 or some years, emotional labor, is this idea that part of what you're delivering when you're doing good quality service, all the things that you may have learned about it at the hospitality school, the service with a smile is a big part of that. And this is one of my favorite ads from Sheraton Hotels. Something not perfect, just say so. Complain to me and I'll just keep smiling, right? No matter what, I will be friendly and courteous. And that's particularly a challenge to meet if we're also feeling really anxious about our health and our job security and politics and everything else that's going on in the world and our kids. So at the very basic level, if you're dealing frontline with employees, you are on the front line of a disease. This was an article that just came out in ABC, and this was the quote, we're on the front lines and this is part of our job, and yet we're still expected to do this service with a smile. And that creates a dissonance, right? If our internal feelings are different than what's expected to be shown, that requires effortful management of your emotions, right? Suppressing, hiding, and maybe even faking or pretending like you feel better than you do. In fact, some of the research that I started doing was looking to see, well, maybe masks make this easier. Okay? Maybe this changes the expectation. I saw this sign, this picture is a sign at a yogurt shop saying there's a smile behind my mask. So maybe I don't have to do as much effort because I can just, have a sign that shows that. I don't have to do it myself. But then there was this other article saying it's actually harder for hospitality workers to do service with a smile through a mask. More effort is needed to get through and have connection with customers. I saw that there was a question come through. Is there something I need to respond to?
Yes. The question is from Tyler Fisher. Tyler wants to know, with more and more events occurring at home, work, relaxing, family time, how do we mentally separate those events when we aren't going anywhere else? Example, when I'm home, I always feel like I should be doing something on my computer, such as learning, working, etc. How do we clearly divide those things while always at home?
Yeah, I have a point about that later when I talk about coping techniques very briefly, but that is a whole, the idea of boundaries is a big problem right now, and it's something that's really important to structure and have as a habitual change. So I'll come back to that, Tyler, a little bit later today. If I don't, feel free to bug me again, all right? Just ping the chat again. So Here's a question for you. We'll just do one other quick poll. Again, thinking about how masks are changing this, the nature of emotional labor. Which service provider is smiling? Is it person A or person B? Is it neither or is it both? So I'll go ahead and see if I can, again, make a poll launch. So do you think person A is smiling, person B, neither, or you just don't know, or both? Okay, I've got the majority of people responding. So the majority of you, 89%, said person B is smiling. And you might be picking up on some certain differences in how this person looks. You might notice that there's a little bit more crinkles around her eyes. So actually, they're both smiling. But person B is engaging in what we know as the Duchenne smile, or the deep acted smile. It actually gets up into the eyes. You might have heard Tyra Banks refer to it as smizing in modeling, right? You got to get it up into your eyes. And it's something that we might do with deep acting is we try to really feel what we're showing, right? So it comes all the way up to a place that's harder to fake into our eyes. And this is commonly the way that service providers do emotional labor. If they're feeling good already, if they're feeling very pro-socially motivated, they're really empathizing or connecting with the customer or the client. Though, that person is also smiling, but that's the smile that we could consider a surface acted smile, where you're just pretending. Maybe you're kind of like, oh, this person's making me uncomfortable, but I've got to keep that smile on. And this is more commonly the response if we feel negatively that day, or maybe just kind of low energy, or if we're being mistreated. So the point being that both of these people were smiling, but with the masks on, you couldn't see the surface acted smile. Almost none of you thought she was smiling, which means the customer can't tell she's smiling either. The only way they can see it with the mask is doing this deep acting. The challenge is deep acting is what we do when we feel better, when we actually feel like or connect with and like the person we're interacting with. Surface acting is what we do when we feel worse, which is what we're feeling right now, and because of the way we might be treated by customers. So another challenge that's come up in hospitality, that I understand many of you might be addressing, is the mask mandates for everyone in the store. So employees are having to wear the masks, as we've already discussed. Customers are supposed to as well. And many stores have signage that makes this very clear, but there seems to be resistance from a small pocket of customers. According to the media, you might think that it's a huge problem. So this is something I'm actually seeking to understand. But there's a lot of attention to these very vitriolic, vehement resistance to the mask mandates in a service interaction. And one of the explanations for this is that customers are used to being always right? The customer is king, the customer is always right. And being told what to do doesn't fit with that. And in fact, I've kind of started to question whether the idea that now you as the employee are telling them to wear a mask means that they feel that they have lost some power. So this is a quote from one of the interviews that I've done recently. The lady said, "It's not your job to tell me how to wear a mask," and actually started filming her and said, "I'm going to post it on YouTube," which is how some of these things get known, right? So I think it's interesting to think about how the service with a smile approach, or the people pleasing as being part of customer service, and quality service is being efficient and responsive and addressing customer concerns, maybe even before they know what they are. That's different than being a mask enforcer, right? If you need to actually enforce that people wear masks, that's a bit more of a confrontational role. And some of the interviews that we've been doing kind of convey this fine line to walk between the positive attitude and the stern mask enforcer. One person described it as being on the front lines of a war, not just the front line of the organization, but front lines of a war, and you're the general in battle. So it's changing a bit of maybe what our expectations are of the hospitality worker that's in person with customers. The challenge, and what my 20 years of research has suggested, is that the more that we experience mistreatment, or even maybe the fear of mistreatment, the more likely we are to do surface acting, that's suppressing and faking, that's not real, that's not in the eyes, and the more that we experience all of these negative health outcomes. I've done research that suggests any of these can happen in response to more surface acting, and that's clearly problematic for employees' health in the service industry. So that brings us to the summary at this point. So based on what I've been reading and studying and the interviews that I've been doing, hospitality workers are still expected to perform service with a smile, even with mask mandates, even during this pandemic. That's still an expectation. Those have not changed. That means that workers have to effortlessly suppress and fake and amplify to get their positive attitude through the mask, and also manage the customer's emotions. They might be feeling threat and anxiety as well as anger and hostility about the mask mandate. All of that meaning potentially more exhaustion and health and family outcomes for the worker. So the last segment is on what can we do about this. But before I go there, are there any questions about emotional labor and how masking might be involved in the experience?
Dr. Grandey, I don't see any additional questions right now, as I think people are pondering these questions. There is a question. Do you know of any research from the consumer side?
On the emotional experience and regulation of the consumer? I mean, we do know that consumers' emotions can be caught by employees and vice versa.
Regarding how they feel about employees in masks.
Right. So there have been a variety of polls done and media reports saying that there are a variety of reasons that people have different feelings about masks. They include political views. They include threat to masculinity. They include discomfort, and they can include health-related reasons, although I'm less clear on what those are. But those are four explanations that I've seen about why customers have differing views. And of course, what's interesting is to wonder what does the employee assume is the reason? What's the attribution the employee is giving? Because that will determine how empathetically they respond to a customer that doesn't want to wear a mask, right? If you assume it's political differences, or if you assume it's they just don't want to follow the rules, they're being defiant, then that creates a different response than if you assume that they have a health reason or that they're feeling really anxious. Maybe they're really fearful of not being able to be understood through, that's something that comes through as the communication is harder. So there's a variety of different reasons that I've seen, but we are still learning about this. It's currently in process.
We have a couple of more questions. One of them leads back to the first section. Do you think you are seeing more anxiety during the pandemic because we are in a messy political crisis? Are we stressed and fearful because of the politics, or do we think people are really scared of the health concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually just recently was involved in a paper where we talked about how politics play a role in the workplace and how it does affect our decisions and our thinking, and the diversity of politics definitely contributes to our conflicts. But that was before the pandemic, that paper and those studies. Now it is all kind of interwoven together, isn't it? I will tell you that my forthcoming research that I will leave you with at the end and invite you to be part of if you're interested, is looking at that intersection of how do politics and the pandemic play a role together, and how do our emotions about each maybe work to exacerbate each other and make things worse. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know right now.
There is another question from Danielle, but I think we want to wait for the end. It's about survivor's guilt. So
yeah.
Move forward.
So let's get to that. Right now, I've kind of left you with a bit of gloom and doom of how things are terrible and awful, and there are things that can be done to help. So this third segment is identifying effective ways to manage emotions. And before I launch into this, I just want to say these aren't easy. And I know you've seen all the articles about, well, you just got to exercise, do yoga, or things that we know, eat healthy, get more sleep, exercise. We know these things, but it's hard to do them. right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's hard to do them, but just be kind to yourself as I'm going through these. You don't have to do all of them. If you just pick one, that can help. Okay, so that's my disclaimer. So the first thing that I believe that we need to do is, in terms of regulating our felt emotion, is to accept the feelings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about regulating, I'm going to talk about recovering, and I'm going to talk about relating as three ways to help ourselves. And to regulate, we first have to know how we feel. So one way to do that is to track your emotions. I'm a big journaler. I really like to keep a journal. I've kept one since I was about 12. It's a way for me to kind of see the ups and downs. We are in a bit of a roller coaster, I feel like. So some weeks are fine, other weeks are horrible. Some days are fine, some days are horrible. And just tracking that in kind of a scientific way can help you kind of see it as information. Okay. There's also some mood apps out there. I have a link to it that you'll have access to after the talk. Dailyo is a free app that you can track it on your phone. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you think about emotions as information, they're not good or bad, they're data, right? So that means you don't have to feel good or bad about the emotions, because they're nothing to feel good or bad about, they're just the information. And they're telling you something, and we need to take time to hear what that message is. So if you're feeling anxiety, it's telling you something that I value is threatened. Okay, what is it that's threatened? Is it my work identity? Is it my health? Where am I at right now? And once I know that, then maybe I can do more to avoid fueling that emotion or that feeling. So if you're realizing, oh, I'm really feeling this way because of politics, as the question just was asking, then maybe I don't want to watch the next debate. So if you're watching the debates, they can kind of fuel that feeling of conflict and threat. Or maybe you want to turn off your news that pops up on your phone. Turn off the auto messaging, and instead, let it be at a time when you're ready to deal with it. There's certain people that maybe you want to turn off or not interact with, that just kind of fuel the fire of anxiety and make you feel worse. And you need to identify what those sources are, and just step away from them in order to avoid fueling and burning up into that anxiety state. The other thing is to realize it inside yourself. So those are about external things that are triggers. Inside yourself, we often tend to do these negative thought spirals. So the opposite of suppressing is we might catastrophize, right? So one approach I've already mentioned is, instead of suppressing, we need to accept the emotion. But the other thing people do is catastrophize or make it even worse, right? So, oh my gosh, if this happens, then this has happened, then I'm gonna lose my job, and then I'm gonna lose everything, and then I'm gonna lose my house, and then and then we get going into this spiral that's making things even worse, that hasn't even happened yet. Okay. So noticing when those spirals are happening and stepping out of them and being calm and reasonable about, okay, where am I at right now? And let's deal with right now. And then the third thing that I've noticed a lot is guilt tripping. So it's kind of like feeling bad about however it is you're feeling. It's adding another layer of negativity and fuel to this fire of bad feelings. So we might be feeling guilty if we have a job. Oh, I feel guilty that I'm employed and other people are not. I shouldn't feel anxious. I shouldn't feel tired. I at least have a job. But now you've added guilt to your anxiety and your threat. So we have to just accept the emotions that we're having, sit with them, even if they're a little uncomfortable, try to understand them, but not let them spiral. So it's a careful balancing act, right? And that's the idea of regulating, finding where that balance is. Once we've accepted them and we've noticed we're not letting them spiral, then we can think about, okay, what do I want to do with this state that I'm in? Okay, and then that takes us to the second main thing. The second one is to recover from those negative states or the stress or exhaustion that we're in. And a key point here is that you choose how to recover from it. Okay, so a big thing is it's you have the control and the choice. Me telling you have to go and exercise or you have to go and do X feels then like another stressor, right? Something else to feel guilty about that you're not doing. So it's your choice. You choose what works for you. So here's some examples of what we know in the evidence that works. Reducing stress arousal can be done by detaching. So going back to Tyler's earlier point about the boundaries and so on, we can create time boundaries. So setting aside breaks, micro breaks, are like little mini breaks in between all the Zooms or all the however online you're working. So it sounded like a lot of you were working remotely. If you do back-to-back-to-back Zooms, it is exhausting. It is exhausting to constantly be vigilant to our screens, to have short eye gaze. You know, we have to take breaks and look at a horizon. We have to build in 5 minutes between meetings to just breathe, move away from the computer, move away from the work, and just remember that we're people in space and not tethered to a computer screen. It's hard to do when you feel busy, but that time investment is completely worth it because you will come back refreshed and ready for the next interaction. You can also think about boundaries or breaks in terms of space. So to Tyler's point about the work-family boundaries, it's really hard to do, but trying to figure out both, okay, what is my time boundary and what is my space boundary about what is work and what is family roles. Now, I'm really bad about this, so I'm preaching myself here, but what time are we gonna say is the end of the work day? Because it could go on forever, right? Because we're home, so work is home, home is work. We could keep working all day, all night. So what time are we going to agree to end our work day? And that's the hard stop. And have someone else hold you accountable. A friend, a parent, a child even would love to be able to tell you, Mom and Dad, you said you had to stop at this time, and then stop, if at all possible, right? And then also having space boundaries. So your workspace is different than your family role space. If you have the space for that in your environment, if you don't, taking a moment to leave the work environment and then return is a way of resetting, the boundaries. Okay, I'm now leaving work and now I'm coming back in my parental role or my spousal role or my personal role. So those are some ideas. It's hard to do for sure, but those are some ideas about time and space boundaries. The second thing to relax is to relax, to reduce the stress arousal. And again, that just sounds so simple, right? But setting aside and giving ourselves time for these low effort, relaxing activities, whatever those are for you, again, is a good investment of time. It will actually pay off. It feels like you can't afford it, but it will pay off by making you more productive and able to focus. So these are some examples: video games, movies, Netflix. I've talked to some other groups about this, and they're like, oh, thank you. I don't feel guilty anymore about binging watching TV. I just started watching Cobra Kai, about the Karate Kid characters now, 30 years later. It's a wonderful escape, and it helps us reduce that stress level. Watching a show that stresses you out, not a good idea. Another big one that there's been a bunch of evidence about is, again, going outside and walking, seeing nature, seeing green, seeing the bigger world than just your screen. And some people really swear by meditation, mindfulness activities to have that same feeling of lowering the stress, finding back to your baseline levels rather than those higher levels of arousal. Your body will thank you. The secondary thing, maybe you're someone that you just hate yoga and you cannot slow down, right? So you can do other things that also help you recover that are more high effort, high arousal states, and that might be more you. So exercise, of course, is one, and doing repeated exercise like vigorous walking, just for 15 minutes, but multiple times during the day is thought to be very valuable. And some even argue more valuable than 1 hour of, so only that 1 hour of detailed exercise. Another thing is mastery, which is more about cognitive exercise rather than physical exercise. So having some hobby or some learning activity or something that you're doing that's for you, that helps you feel good about yourself, helps you learn and grow and remember you're a person that has your own interests and your own ideas and your own needs. That can be really hard with kids. Those kids might need your time and attention. You don't feel like you have room for your own personal needs and hobbies and so on. But even feeling good about doing things with them can be part of it. I know when my kids were younger, having to take a break and going outside to play with them actually really helped me feel more productive later in the day. And these are all also ways you can exert control over your life. I'm going to give myself this time to do this thing. I'm going to start a garden. I'm going to learn some basic French. I'm going to start playing the piano, that piano that's dusty I never use, right? And it's just something that helps you feel better about you. So the third thing is, oh, and before I leave that, I've alluded to this, but the recovery paradox, just again, don't feel guilty if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't make time. Those who need recovery the most feel like they don't have time for it. That's the paradox. Those of us who are feel most stressed out don't give ourselves the time to feel less stressed out. So I'm telling you, the evidence supports that time spent on recovery is a good investment. It's not a waste, because when you keep spinning your wheels, you're less productive. You're not getting things done if you're in that exhausted state, right? You need the time to replenish that energy before you can be productive again. So I have some evidence about this. Again, if you're still struggling with that, this was actually with hospitality workers, and it's a project that's ongoing, under review right now. This is actually comparing people who were working with those who were no longer working. Again, that group that stopped working during the pandemic. They had more stress in terms of financial and job threat, but they also had more time, right? More personal time than those who were still working, who had more health threat, but were less on the financial and job threat. And that's what you can see here, going down from the pandemic to the changes in their work environment, and then stress, but also recovery. And we were looking at how that affected their general levels of stress, how that had changed since February. So we looked at mastery, relaxation, and exercise. And what we learned was that time spent on relaxation, when they said I did things that relaxed me, I did low effort activities, counteracted the job insecurity, where they actually felt better. They felt less anxious later in time than those who didn't do those activities. And again, that was specifically helpful to those who were furloughed and were no longer working. But it was also helpful for those who were not. Mastery was the other thing that actually helped, and it particularly helped for insomnia. So actually doing another activity that makes you feel good gives you something else to focus on, and then you're not musing over all of the work stresses when you go to bed. You're actually thinking about that positive activity you were doing. And that was actually effective for everyone, not just for those who were furloughed. So spending a little bit of time on those kinds of activities actually worked. We actually did not find support for exercise, which is kind of interesting. So I guess you can use that as your guilt-free excuse to not do so, but we know from a lot of evidence that it is helpful to exercise. I saw another question pop up there. Susan?
Yes. From Kyle, wants to know, have you found any evidence, empirical or otherwise, of strategies, actions that companies have taken to help their employees focus on stress recovery?
Yeah, so that's actually a great segue to my next slide. And if I don't touch on what you're thinking of, let me know, Kyle. So in terms of relating, the third component of what we can do. So the first one, again, was kind of accepting where you're at. The second one is about recovering, your state, lowering your stress, increasing your positive states. The third one is about reaching out beyond yourself. Okay? And often at work, we're interacting with other people, particularly in hospitality. So a big thing that I have found in my own experience and in my research that matters is sharing our emotions with our coworkers. And that can be unusual. I've done some workshops where I've had people tell me, well, I don't want to say how I'm really feeling because I don't want to seem weak, or I don't want to, it seems unprofessional, or I don't want to put, that weight on someone else. But it's really a gift. It's a gift if we're all feeling isolated, sharing how you're really feeling and reaching past that kind of polite bubble we create can really create a different type of environment that we can both live and work in. So this can be done through focusing on others. So giving gratitude or compassion are other focused emotions. So that might be thinking about people who in the past meant a lot to you and helped you be who you are, and writing them a note a letter. I actually got a letter in the mail thanking me recently, and it was so amazing because that never happens. But even an email or a chat and just saying, you know, I was just thinking about you and how much you mean to me. Thanks so much. Or thanks for your mentorship, or thanks for being such a great person to mentor. Those have actually been shown to improve our own feelings as well as make the other person feel good. And it also connects us again. And compassion is noticing or thinking, wow, I remember that one colleague, they're at home alone. They don't have kids or a partner. Maybe I'll just check in and see how they're doing. And sometimes we avoid that because we're fearful we won't be able to handle it. But the alternative is worse, in my view, right? We need to reach out and connect with those people that are maybe feeling as isolated as we are. We gain from that, and so do they. And in my own research, I've found that we can do this in a way in the workplace by giving us a kind of like the backstage with our colleagues. So we know that we have to do emotional labor with customers and clients. We can't, let them know every horrible thing that we're feeling or thinking, especially if it's about them. But if we can at least share that and feel safe sharing how we're really feeling with our coworkers, at least one, that can create this safe, shared sense of connection that actually alleviates the burnout states from having to do emotional labor. And just as a graphic of this, because I really believe in this, this is a study that I published a few years back showing that for a group of hospital workers who were facing more mistreatment from patients were yelling or upset, they were having to fake and suppress their emotions with them, that surface acting. They were then more exhausted, as I've already talked about. But if they could go with their work unit, so at their department level, and they felt safe sharing how they were really feeling with them, then that actually reduced or neutralized the exhaustion from surface acting. It made it less problematic. If they had to keep regulating with their coworkers, it made it worse. It made the surface acting worse. And as an example of how to do this now, one of our interviews described this, that the staff in the restaurant made a Google Doc for everyone to share how they were feeling. And then they shared that with the owners of the restaurant. The owners then responded that they were heard and then problem solved with them how to make everyone feel safe and comfortable. And she described that as a very, that we were all on the same page. That's that idea of connection, and we're in this together, we're not isolated, and that then can buffer some of the exhaustion from having to regulate the emotions while at work.
Dr. Grandey, we have a question from Tesley. Tesley wants to know, you touched on it a bit earlier, but do you think there are reasons other than a perceived lack of time that contribute to people's resistance to partaking in recovery activities?
I think that's a great question. I could probably guess a number of things and from personal experience. One basic one that we can do something about is if it's not a habit. We especially when we're in a state of stress tends to narrow our attention to what's right in front of us. And what's right in front of us right now is what's stressful to us, right? That's what stress and anxiety does, is it narrows our attention to the stressor. So it could be that we don't have built in the habit of then turning to something else and doing a different activity as like the ones I've described. Instead, we turn and focus on the stressor because that's kind of the automatic purpose of stress. So it could be that you have time, but instead of turning and starting the habit of now I'm going to go exercise or now I'm going to sit and journal, we do what's automatic, which is I'm going to go find more information that's going to stress me out further, right? I'm going to go online and look at my social media because that's kind of the easier path. So that maybe is a little bit of it. It's not a lack of time. We're spending time doing something, but it's actually making things worse because we're focusing on the stressor source. So one way to deal with that is to create habits or schedules where it's like, nope, at this time or, at this point when this happens, that's when I go for a walk. And being really rigid about that, even if we feel overwhelmed, because we know that's what will help. I think that's one big thing. Another thing is if we don't feel accountable. So that's where kind of tracking the moods and tracking what we're doing can help. Setting goals. There's lots of apps for goals that can help. And then having a partner that checks in with us and maybe even does it with us. I'm a big proponent of walk-in talks. So instead of Zoom, I'll do a talk with my students on the phone, on the actual phone, and I'll walk with them while we're having that meeting. And that gets me outside, it gets me moving. So I can do that guilt-free because I'm doing work, but I'm also walking and doing exercise. So that's kind of a way I get around another constraint, which is I'm too busy. Well, I can build it into my day and still get things done. Does that help?
Thank you, Dr. Grandey. I think we ought to move forward because we're getting close to our hour mark, and we still have a question from Danielle about survivor's guilt. Do you want to take that question now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any tips on how to balance survivor's guilt with fair anxiety for our own jobs? Over the past week, I have seen countless peers and mentors from my career being laid off. I have not yet gotten a call about a layoff, so I'm technically still safe, furloughed. I feel guilty that I still have a job, while so many amazing people do not, but I also feel fair that the calls aren't done yet and I could be next.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You're describing that insecurity and then layering on with the guilt that you should feel better than you do. And so you have to accept where you are right now, and again, not make yourself feel worse about it because of other people's conditions. But I know that's really hard. And of course you're empathizing with your colleagues who were laid off. So keep track of those as different things. You can empathize with other people's situations without needing to feel guilty about your own. You didn't cause them to be laid off. And of course, if there's any managers on this, you might experience that as well, that you're doing those calls. That's difficult too. But speaking right now to that one, if you're a coworker, you didn't make that happen, you didn't cause it. So you can feel empathetic for that person and feel for them, maybe show compassion and reach out and check in on how they're doing without it needing to be something that you feel bad about for your own situation, which is separate from theirs. And that was part of also the point with that, the dial I showed. We're all experiencing stress and threat, but just maybe about different things, right? So no one person is escaping this. We're all experiencing it maybe at different levels and about different things, but no one is unscathed. So yeah, you're in a hard situation. I don't have an easy answer, but that would be one thing, is to try to separate empathy and compassion and feel those and not need to feel the guilt for your own situation. So I'm going to just, one last thing is about dealing with the emotional labor component. Another really tough thing, in addition to the survivor guilt of coworkers, is dealing with the emotions of these customers who maybe are resisting masks or coming in with their own anxiety. You might be experiencing contagion with their feelings, and that's hard as well. So one question that has come up is, well, how do I build rapport and do good service with a mask? So just some suggestions that are both in the literature. So there's a link here to an article, and some other ideas is, go back to that idea of deep acting. A way to have the smile reach your eyes is to kind of remind yourself of what's good. So going back to that comment, you can feel grateful for the job you have and feel good and think about what is good in your life without also feeling bad that others have it worse. Those are two separate things. So go ahead and feel grateful for what you have that's good in your life, and feel good about those interactions that you have where you're able to help customers and clients and maybe help them feel less stressed and help them with their work needs. And taking perspective and realizing we're all in this stress state together can help us, again, bring the positivity for real into our faces and our connection. But if you can't do that, other ways to do it are, thinking about these other bodily ways of connecting with rapport. So since we can't use our smiles because of the mask, we can think about our eye contact and be a lot more direct and focused about that. Open eyes, looking right at the person. There's ways to do vocal tone, and maybe you've experienced that. If you do call center work, you can tell if somebody is warm in their voice or has the smile in their voice or not. So emotional labor is also with your voice. So, and how are you today is different than, and how are you today, right? So we can do a lot with that. Body language, you know, having an open posture, we probably have to be more exaggerated about that right now than we maybe used to be, where we could do it all with our face. So open posture rather than closed off, you know, where we might cross our arms, that kind of says, I'm not interested in interacting with you. And then synchronicity is something that creates rapport. So kind of mimicking or mirroring the other person's body posture and expressions when you can see them. So all of these are ways that help the other person feel connected to you according to evidence that you can do without just the smile. Of course, all of that does require some emotional labor. Similarly, de-escalating conflict is another thing. If you're dealing with customers who are upset or who are defiant about the masks, this was a sign I have on the slide here about abusive language will not be tolerated, being very clear about that, and then knowing how to handle it if it does happen. So there's a link there that I provided, but there's 3 basic steps that we know from the literature about dealing with upset or complaining or hostile customers. Showing empathy. So again, that's back to that emotional labor. It takes effort, but acknowledging that it's an unfair or unpleasant situation. There is discomfort with masks, and that realizing it might feel like a threat to their feeling of autonomy or control as well as your own. So we're all feeling a bit threatened, and acknowledging that. I know this isn't any fun, but step 2, this is a policy that applies to everybody all the time. I'm wearing my mask all day. I hope that you wouldn't mind wearing one. You offer choices. So here's a mask. I can meet you outside. Usually most businesses have multiple options. You can go online. And that gives autonomy back to the customer as opposed to wear a mask or else. And then thirdly is interpersonal fairness. So 2 aspects is, one is explaining the purpose for the policy. So we really care about our customers. We have some customers, employees who have serious health conditions, so we're being really cautious for them. And then secondly, interpersonal courtesy. So kill them with kindness is one of the phrases. Just being really over the top is, again, emotional labor, but it's one way to de-escalate it. As soon as you start to ratchet it up, so will they, and then it becomes retaliatory. So all of that will help, but it's exhausting. And that's where you need a break, step out, and recover. And this can happen online as well. So it doesn't have to just be in person if there's an upset customer. And we're all a bit on edge, so it can happen anytime. So building in those breaks, and if your management allowing your employees to take breaks to recover from these is really, really helpful. I just want to call attention to the CDC actually has detailed ideas about what to do and not to do to prevent violence. So there have been high profile media cases about reactions to masks. So I just want to make people aware that this is a resource and there's a lot of useful links and so on at this website. So again, in summary, in terms of yourself and recovering, you need to regulate emotions by accepting them. The more you push them down, the more they pop back up. Right? Like whack-a-mole. So don't just push them down, accept that they are there, try not to let them get out of control and fuel them, but accept them and then say, okay, now what am I going to do with this information? Then you can move to the recovery, pick which thing works for you, detaching, setting those boundaries, relaxing, making a list, like here's the 3 things I'm going to do this week that will help me recover. Feeling like you have a plan helps too, because that gives you that sense of control back. And then thirdly, finding those connections, relations with other people, with coworkers, and finding out ways of creating rapport with customers so you can get back to doing the job that you want to do and do it well. So that's the conclusion of this talk. I think we're right at our time. So those were our 3 goals. And I just want to say every person's experience is somewhat different. So if you have different experiences, or you have some great ideas to cope, we can talk a bit about them in the few minutes we might have remaining. But I also would love to ask you to share them with me if you're willing to be a participant in research. We've got ongoing studies right now in a variety of ways with interviews and surveys. And if you're interested, there's a link or a QR code for you to be part of it and share your voice. So this time I'll turn it over to you, Susan.
Thank you, Dr. Grandey. We have a couple more questions that if we can answer them really quickly, that would be great.
Okay.
From Lila Has there been any studies done on impacts of how teams are adjusting when people are called back to work between those who stayed and those who were furloughed? How to overcome that feeling of, well, you got to stay and got paid, etc. Any tips on moving forward to reunite, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't know of research on that. And I think that's because it's such a new experience. I mean, we have a lot of research on re-entry into the workforce, but not like this. So I could make some guesses, but I'm going to just say I don't know. And I think that's a great question. And I'd love for you to share your views with me in a different forum or in our study if you're interested. I think that's a great point.
Okay, and last but not least, we have a question from Christy, who wants to know, is there a company in the hospitality industry that has implemented some of the tools you discussed that we can learn best practices from?
You know, I don't have any off the top of my head. The research I tends to be at the person level as opposed to the company level, but I have seen a lot of, and the other thing, so there are cases, I know like Walmart and Trader Joe's have implemented health ambassadors is what they call them. So instead of mask enforcers, they're using health ambassadors, which is an interesting way of dealing with it. And those are people that are specifically, their role is to help enforce the masks. So it's not on other people to do it. Whether or not that's effective, I don't know yet because it's still so new and we haven't partnered. And a lot of these companies tend to not want to partner with scientists, maybe because they want, if it's working, they want to keep it for their own company. They don't necessarily want to share it, or they're afraid of things not going well and then it being out and known. So it's actually pretty hard to do the research within a company and know that. But there are examples of companies trying things. We just don't know so much about how effective they are.
And then we got one more question from Daniela. Could you please share the application that helps you keep your emotions in check?
Yeah, so what I was sharing was the app is Dailyo, and it's a mood tracker. So I wouldn't call it so much in check because that describes like the suppressing that word makes me think of suppressing, but it's more a tracker. And what I like about Dailyo is it's free and it allows you to know what did you do that day or before feeling that way. So you can put in how you're feeling, but also what activities were you doing. And then you can start to see patterns to know what your triggers are. And I think that's pretty useful.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Grandey. That was very, very informative. I think a lot of people are pondering and wondering, and I think you will get some contact from this to continue your studies. This was very informative and enlightening. So that's all the time we have for today's webinar. Attendees, you will receive a post-webinar survey from Dr. Haran. So if you registered for this webinar, you will get something via email. Please take the time to complete that post-webinar survey and we welcome your feedback. There will be another Research, Recovery, and Reskill webinar on October 15th. It's the third part of the four-part series on people working or not working in isolation, coping tools for the hospitality industry, and the topic will be lessons from astronauts dealing with isolation. And we have a NASA scientist who will be talking about how people's behaviors react to isolation. And many of us who've been working from home have been working in isolation thus far. Please visit the Rosen College website and click on Professional Development in the Academics drop-down menu at the top of the homepage to find the complete list of information on the Research, Recovery, and Reskill webinars and to register for upcoming webinars. There's one every week through mid-November, so please do join us, and we hope you're finding all this information that we're sharing with you very helpful. Also note that Rosen College offers several certificate programs for alumni and for those who do have a bachelor's degree that may enhance your skills. So if you are furloughed, when you're called back, you might have an extra skill, or even if you're working now and you want to enhance your skills, there are certificate programs that you can take. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Grandey. Thank you, Dr. Haran. And please do join us again next week.
Thank you.